Hi, everyone. I see people are starting to join.
Hi Malak, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm not sure if you can see me. I don't seem to see that option.
I can't see you now.
Um, I'm trying to turn it on.
I think it's on.
We're unable to see you.
Okay, I will just go without video then.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that it is one past the hour, so no doubt time for us to start. Hello to everyone who has joined us today, and welcome to the first in a series of bite-sized sessions aimed at students and early career researchers. Over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we are going to be looking at a range of topics relevant to students, to early career researchers, but also to a wider audience, covering some of these very relevant topics, such as how to publish, how to find funding, how to get attention from academic publishers, and also how to use AI responsibly. That session, in fact, is next Monday, so I would encourage you to sign up if you haven't already. Today, we are going to be addressing mental health and wellness in research. So, we know obviously that research is very rewarding, but it can be high pressure and it can be very isolating. So, we're going to be looking at practical ways to build healthy habits, to recognize challenges, and how to seek help, seek support if need be. And I'm really pleased to introduce you to the speaker for this session today. This is Malak Mahmoud, who is a senior student at the Rochester Institute of Technology in Dubai. She specializes in psychology. She is also a two-time intern with us at Zendi and Knology. She has experience with providing advice to support mental health both in the workplace, and for research. So Malak, if you're ready, I will pass over to you.
Okay, hello everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to start with the topic first is how to support mental health in research. So, to start off, last semester I'd open my laptop and stare at the screen for 20 minutes and just close it again. Not a single word written. And here's the thing, you might think it was because I didn't care. However, it's almost the opposite. I cared so much that I couldn't even start. And this is something that might be common and a lot of people might find it familiar. So, today we're going to be looking at three things. First of all, we're going to recognize the challenges that are in research and what they actually look like. Then, we're going to be building working habits that can protect you day to day. And lastly, we're going to know when and where to reach out for support. All three matter equally, so we're going to be spending real time on each. So, before we start off and before we go any further, I want to ground this in actual numbers because it's so easy to convince yourself that this might just be you, that you're not resilient enough or something like that. And that's usually not the case. Here's why I can say that. Globally, around 40% of people or graduate students report symptoms of anxiety or depression that is connected to the research, and that's roughly 6 times higher than the general population. Also, about 1 in 4 PhD students show clinically significant depression symptoms, and around 1 in 6 might show anxiety symptoms. And this is based on pooled research across multiple countries. And also, in Nature's own global survey of PhD students, around 36% said that they sought help for anxiety or depression that directly attributed to their studies. So here are some numbers that are beneficial for everyone to know. However, I do want to be careful here. This does not mean that research is universally difficult or unsatisfying. A lot of people actually report genuine satisfaction and meaning in their work. However, loving what you do and experiencing challenges can coexist. And that's why this makes it hard to miss in yourself. So let's start off with recognizing the challenges. When you say research is stressful, that could be one thing. However, it's really covering for several distinct experiences that tend to show up together. For instance, there's burnout. Burnout is running on empty, feeling checked out, or disconnected from the work that you used to care about. There's also imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is basically feeling like a fraud despite having real, visible proof that you're competent. And lastly, there's isolation, which is almost baked into the structure of research. And something else is perfectionism and anxiety, which is the pressure to be exceptional on every output, every time. However, these don't just occur in the same time in the same person. They can actually feed each other, and we'll get to understand how as we go further. Let's look at burnout. First of all, it's something that probably a lot of people already have put a name to. And burnout is identified by psychologists. It's broken down into three parts. It comes from Maslach's burnout framework, and it's broken into three parts. The first part is exhaustion, which could be mentally and physically. You feel mentally and physically drained, although you might rest, and although the rest that you have could hypothetically be enough, you would still feel mentally and physically drained. The second part is detachment. Detachment is the feeling of why does any of this even matter? And lastly, the third one, which is underrated and it's not spoken about enough, is reduced efficacy. Reduced efficacy is the feeling that whatever you do is not good enough, and even when it objectively could be good enough. The third one is underrated and it's not spoken about enough, and it's also dangerous. The issue is that with that is because you might already feel incompetent. So admitting that you're struggling could be like you're confirming that the thought that you might be incompetent, which isn't true. Burnout also rarely comes from working in isolation. It can actually mostly come from working without boundaries. So, for instance, long stretches with zero real breaks, working for many hours without taking any breaks. Comparison culture is another thing. For example, everyone else's output is looking more polished than yours, or their draft looks neater than the one that you did. This also leads to feelings of burnout. Another thing is sleep sacrifice. So, if you treat sleep as a flexible schedule that just you don't care for your sleep as much, this would lead to feelings of burnout. Finally, there's also perfectionism. So, you redo something, you keep writing the same thing and redoing it until it feels enough. However, for a lot of people, the bar of something being enough does not actually exist. So, this could also lead to feelings of burnout. Next up, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome and isolation. Imposter syndrome is that persistent feeling of self doubt. You're constantly thinking that you're not good enough or whatever you're doing is not enough, and people are going to think that you're a fraud. However, um, it's it's like almost like you're waiting for someone to realize that you're not who they think you are. Even if there's evidence that you're capable, you would still think that you aren't. And these feelings can especially be common at the beginning among early career researchers when they see other people's achievements without seeing like the struggles or the setbacks or the uncertainty that might have happened behind the scenes of the other people as well. This would lead to you just seeing the success without knowing the result behind it. And this would make you feel that you're not good enough compared to other people. Isolation in that case would also make this specifically worse. And that's because research is often a solitary process. And the less peer contact that you might have, the less likely you are to actually hear someone else voice the same doubt. So that's why your problem might start to feel unique, although it's usually something that's much more common. Um, Actually, having a sense of belonging in the research community would like, shows up and up again how strong of a protective factor it is in research compared to individual coping strategies. A lot of studies have said that um, having a sense of belonging in the research community and peer support has shown to be a very good protective factor of burnout, isolation, and research stress in general. And now that we've looked at the challenges, we want to try and build healthy working habits. So, small, repeatable habits can protect you more and more than big steps might actually do. So, here are 5 things that we're going to be discussing, and I want you to look at one thing per week, not all 5. Looking at all 5 at once would feel stressful. That's why we're breaking them down, and you could just start with one small habit at a time. So let's start looking at the habits. We categorize them into 2 parts. The first one is protecting your time and rest, and these are some habits that you can do to protect your time and rest. First of all, time block with recovery built in. What this means is you schedule short recovery windows in the plan that you have. So let's say that you have a plan of submitting a draft on a specific day. You know, you can't just sit the whole time, let's assume 3 hours, just working on the plan. You have to split it and you have to give yourself real breaks. Real breaks include, for instance, after 90 minutes of focused work, you can take 15 minutes of real break. A real break includes a walk, stretching, staring out of the window, and maybe even leaving your phone away so that you don't scroll on it, because scrolling would also make your brain just as activated and you'd still feel tired even after taking the break. So you could take a break for 15 minutes, just take a walk, stretch, or just stare out of the window. The next is the 2 minute rule. The 2 minute rule helps you when you don't know how to start and when you're avoiding something. So let's say if you're avoiding something, just commit 2 minutes to it. Tell yourself, I'll open the document and I'll start writing one sentence. And usually, when you do that, momentum would usually take you further. You would start writing more and you'd start going above the 2 minutes. Next is protecting your sleep window. So, pulling an all nighter before a deadline would always almost backfire. Before any major thing, if you plan on pulling an all nighter and sacrificing your sleep, this would always backfire because it affects your memory and your focus. Sleeping would help reconsolidate the memories, and it would help you achieve better than sacrificing sleep in order to do more work. So, the memory and focus would consolidate during sleep, and a sleep deprived brain does not perform as good. It just feels more urgent. So, sleeping is important and it should not be sacrificed. The second part we're speaking about is protecting your boundaries and your inner peace, which is very important and lots of people miss in themselves. First of all, micro boundaries between work and rest. In order to achieve a boundary between work and rest, it's best to actually physically separate them. For instance, separate the place where you rest and the place where you work. So, different locations. Maybe sit in a different posture and leave your phone in another room so that you won't get distracted by work, for instance. Even if you start working from bed, your brain is going to associate bed with stress and not with rest, which is something that wouldn't be good for you. So that's why my having a physical boundary between work and rest would help you. Next is catching the self-talk spiral. So we want you to notice the moment where you think I'm struggling with something. The moment it turns into something more like I'm not good enough, that's exactly where imposter syndrome would be hitting. And that's exactly where you need to notice that moment and try to replace it with something that's more self compassionate. For instance, if you keep thinking, I'm not good enough, you can replace the thought with something like, this is something that's challenging right now for me. However, struggling does not mean that I'm not capable. When you catch the self talk spiral, this would help you be kinder to yourself, which would help you feel less stressed. And you would think that, yes, a lot of people are also going through the same thing. I'm not the only one in this. So I shouldn't think that because I can't do something now, that I can't do it at all. These are some habits that can build resilience over weeks, and they're very good to achieve on the longer run. However, you might sometimes need things for right now, like the moment where you feel pressured right now, you might need something to help calm you down. And this is why we also have some quick tools to help you in the moment. So let's start with box breathing. Box breathing is a technique, it's a breathing technique, and it's basically you breathe in for four, you hold in for 4 seconds, and then you hold, you breathe in for 4 seconds, and then you hold, and then you breathe out for 4 seconds, and then you hold for 4 seconds. So it's in for four, hold for four, out for four, hold for four. It's a simple pattern, but this directly calms down your nervous system's stress response. It acts automatically on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for calming down your body. And this usually happens in under a minute. It's genuinely useful right before a meeting or a hard conversation. Yes, it doesn't, it's not directly involved in your workload or any of that, but it can help you have more, help you stress less, and this can help you think more clearly and rationally. Next is time boxing. Time boxing is a technique where you set a timer for a fixed block. For instance, let's say 20 to 50 minutes. And this might sound simple, however, it helps you remove like the constant decision of how long should I stay working for or when do I stop working. So setting a timer would help you just focus on working during that set time and help get rid of some thoughts. For instance, when do I stop or when do I start, which can be like an own source of fatigue. Next up is brain dump journaling. So before bed or before starting a work block, it's good to just write down every thought that you might have or task in your mind down on a journal. So it's called brain dump journaling. It's not like reflective journaling, for instance, because you're just writing thoughts without arranging anything. It's not helping you solve anything, but it's just offloading it from your working memory so that it stops looping, so that you won't constantly keep thinking about the specific task, for instance. You're just writing everything down so that your working memory is not fully loaded with thoughts. Next is a movement break. Movement breaks are important because a short it act like it helps reset your stress hormones like cortisol, for instance, and people would constantly focus better afterwards. So this isn't like a short walk or a stretch. It's more of like, for instance, a longer movement break in between work blocks. Okay, asking for support is a protective factor and not a failure. A lot of people ask for a lot of researchers who struggle never actually reach out, and it's often because of the same imposter feelings that might have caused the struggle. This convinces them that maybe they don't deserve help or that everyone is doing better than them and they can't just be the only ones struggling. Usually, this is not the case. A lot of people miss getting support because of these thoughts, while getting support is maybe the most important thing. So, how do you know that it's actually time to to reach out or to get support? There are a few signs that you can get that you can have in order for you to know when it's time to actually reach out. The first one is when exhaustion doesn't lift away even after rest. So the difference between like normal stress and burnout is that after the pressure or after the deadline is gone during the normal stress, you just feel relieved again. But however, in burnout, even after the pressure is gone, there is still this feeling of stress and uneasiness, which could be a sign that you need help or you need to seek support. Pulling away from people that you'd usually talk to is also another sign. You're distancing yourself from people. Work that you used to like also feeling meaningless for weeks. So maybe just not just a bad day, it's something that goes on for weeks. If you also have noticeable changes in sleep, appetite, or physical health, this is another sign that you may need to reach out for support. There are also people who have persistent thoughts of just quitting entirely, not just out of frustration, but just quitting entirely. And having these thoughts could be a sign that you need to seek support. Maybe one of them on their own isn't like a big crisis. However, if you have several persisting for multiple weeks, it's worth acting on. Now, where do we actually turn to for support? First of all, peers and mentors could be a first going point. So, for instance, lab mates or cohort mates, study groups, mentors and supervisors, they're like the fastest way that you realize that you're not alone in this. This is the fastest way to know that other people are also facing the same struggles. And this would also help you not feel isolated. The second step is going to a university counselor or a wellness service or wellness services. Usually, university counselors or wellness services are confidential. They're trained for supporting people and they're usually free or low cost. Finally, if something that is beyond peer support, that you need something beyond peer support or beyond university counseling, there is professional or crisis support. This includes therapists, counselors, or crisis lines for anything that's urgent and is beyond what peer support can hold. And if you're not sure where to start, maybe just start talking to someone that you trust. It doesn't have to be a big step. Finally, struggling is not a sign that you're not cut out for this. Everyone struggles, and it's important to be able to recognize these challenges, build healthier habits, and reach out to someone if you need. So recognize when this shows up, protect yourself using the habits, and reach out before it becomes a crisis. All three matter equally. This was part of the series of Igniting Impact Bite-sized sessions powered by Zindi. We have multiple sessions coming in the next upcoming weeks as well. So I'd encourage you to also register, and it would be something like I'm sure everyone, early career researchers and students, I'm sure everyone's going to benefit. We have very diverse topics as well. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, Malak. Thank you for a really great session. I think a lot of what you said probably resonated with a lot of people. It certainly did with me. I see a few questions in the chat box, so what I might do is pass them on to you, if that's okay.
Yes.
The first one is someone asking, how do I know if it's burnout or just normal research stress?
Okay, so as mentioned, normal research stress usually goes after the deadline or the pressure passes. However, burnout would still persist and you'd still get the feelings of detachment or exhaustion physically and mentally, and you'd still feel that maybe you'd still have the feelings of self doubt even after the pressure is gone by a long time. Burnout persists, and however, research stress usually stays and goes after the deadline passes. So, this is the main difference.
Okay, that's really interesting. So if you felt that anxiety persisting beyond a deadline, that could be an indicator that it's more than just short-term stress.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. If anyone would like to speak live to Malak, please do feel free. Otherwise, I'll continue with the questions in the chat box. Okay. Second question. Is it normal to feel isolated even when I have lab mates or cohort mates?
Yes. So, this is actually a very common feeling. Even if you're around people, you might still feel like you're isolated. And this is because isolation here does not is not related to like physical proximity, how close you are to someone physically. It could mean something, it's something more mental, like the support that you're getting from people, the way that you're telling people about your struggles, for instance. Maybe you're just sitting around your lab mates or such. However, you're not letting out the feelings of stress that you're facing. So you would still feel like you're isolated from them, although they might be there physically with you.
Okay. And from your presentation, I guess communication is key here, just to talk to someone over a coffee, over a tea.
Yes, that's right. And having
Okay.
research support is like a very good protective factor, even more than, for instance, individual coping strategies. So if you have people around you and people that you can talk to and share your struggles with, you can also know what they're facing, and you wouldn't feel like you're alone in this. And this would help you have like a sense of belonging, and it's usually a very strong protective factor.
Okay. I have one question myself, actually, Malak, if that's okay,
Yes,
and then
of
I'll really
course.
open the floor to everyone else.
Of course.
Earlier you said that scrolling on your phone doesn't really count as a break, and I have to say I'm very guilty of doing that whenever I step away from my desk. So, in your eyes, what does a really good restorative break look like, even if it's, really short?
So usually the best way would be to, if the weather allows it, to be to go out for a walk. Usually in nature, in the sun, it's better to go out for a walk there. However, if you can't, let's assume that the weather is too hot, then even walking inside, it would be something to let your brain just go, like remove all the stress of work or anything that's like, for instance, the phone. When you're on your phone, you're also still, your brain's also still being activated. You're still working, you're still looking at stuff. Maybe even you might even see things that, let's say, would help make you feel more stressed. Let's say you encounter a post or something like that of someone sharing a success that they had that you still don't. This would make you feel more stressed. That's why maybe you scrolling on your phone wouldn't be the best option. Going out for a walk, let's say, would help you like calm down, and this would help restore your focus. It will help lower the stress hormone cortisol. And let's say, for instance, another thing you can do is just sitting and staring out of the window, just completely zoning out from like anything that's related to work. Just anything related to work, keep it out of your mind and just focus on something during that moment, something that you can take peace from. Let's say you enjoy reading, you can sit and read for a bit. This is another thing that you can do. But your brain is not going to be as activated, and you're not going to encounter as much things that could negatively affect you if you're just doing something that's outside of work, or maybe not just holding your phone at all as well.
Thanks, Malak. That's really good. Really good advice. And there's one more question that's come in, and in fact, it's a nice tie into what you were saying. The
Mhm.
question is, I feel guilty taking breaks when I'm already behind, and how can I get past that? And I guess it's a really good point. Obviously, we're being told you should take breaks when you're feeling stressed, but we worry about taking that time. So how can we deal with that?
Okay. I think the best way to deal with that is to think, first of all, of the break as something that you relate to work as well. So taking a break is part of work, not something on its own. So when you have that thought that yes, I'm taking a break during my time of work as a part of work in order for me to perform better. Because if I don't take breaks, then my brain is going to be filled with information and I'm going to be more stressed and I'm not going to perform well. However, if I take a break, I'm going to perform better. So if someone just stays working for a long amount of time and they even sacrifice sleep, in the end they're going to have results, but the results are not going to be as good as if you did take a break. And that's because when you're not taking breaks, you're not focused, your brain is scattered, you might be writing information that's even wrong. So taking a break would help you calm down, would help you like remove some of the stress, and then you can work with more focus and better results. So think of taking a break as a part of work and not something outside of work. This can help you remove the feelings of guilt that come with taking a break and wasting time, for instance.
Thank you, Malak. I really like that way of looking at it. Okay, so I don't see any more questions in the chat box. Would anyone like to add anything? No? Okay. Well, we are at past, and these are bite-sized sessions, so we will be concluding today. First of all, thank you, Malak, for a really great session. Secondly, as we mentioned earlier, there will be a second bite-sized session on Monday, which will be looking at using AI responsibly. So I would encourage everyone to sign up and join us for that one. But in the meantime, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Malak, and see you soon.
Thank you.